Hi guys, my name is Alicia and welcome back to my channel. Today's format is going to be a bit different. I'm going to pose a question about art and take you along with me as I attempt to answer it. So I hope you enjoy and let's get to it. My favorite poet Ocean Vuong once asked, "Is destruction necessary for art?" So when I hear this quote, I basically interpret it as, does all good art originate out of suffering? And I think there's two sides to this question. So on one hand, pain makes a beautiful muse. I've had some experiences where I've had such raw and overwhelming emotion inside of me that I've felt the need to translate it onto a canvas or some kind of nonverbal artistic expression to process it. I feel like that's where we get the idea of quote unquote art is an outlet from, because art is this form of catharsis, this form of emotional release. And then in this vein, I think that's why my art often deals with juxtapositions and tension between two opposing ideas, because this clash can be interesting and it can even harmonize sometimes. And I get some of this ethos from dance. So dance teaches you better than anyone that opposition breeds balance. When you're in ballet class and you're learning pirouettes, they tell you to push down but simultaneously pull up. And so this kind of duality between two opposing forces helps keep you on your center. Therefore, I think it is valid to see tension as an integral part of art and of the creation process, and tension is usually born out of a good emotional place, so I can see where that side of the argument comes in. But on the other side, however, I think we need to be careful of the tortured artist trope. There is this idea in media and sort of in the world in general that to make true and necessary works of art means to subject yourself to pain and suffering, because it's in those moments where you'll have that revelation, that insight into the human condition that enables you to reach the next level of artistry. You know, to this end, we can look at Nina from Black Swan. As she progressively descends more and more into madness and obsession, she simultaneously rises up the ranks of her ballet company. So artistic excellence and madness go hand in hand. Even in a broader sense, you can look at Victor from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. He is this genius who sort of descends into insanity as he's creating his monster, you know, this pinnacle of human innovation, to a level that even like challenges the divine. And so you have superb excellence, you have all of this genius that comes at the expense of his mental sanity. And so there is this idea of the tortured artist, this idea that true artistry demands a flavor of insanity. But I think that this idea can be a bit fraught because it plays on the idea that sadness and madness is a more worthwhile emotion than others. And perhaps this is because sadness is perceived to have more depth and complexity and richness, whereas in contrast, happiness is more simple and perhaps unremarkable. But this idea invalidates a wide spectrum of human emotion. It's possible to make art out of a happy place. You don't have to necessarily be in the pits of despair to channel that into something worthwhile. And if that is necessary to your practice, I guess that begs the question, what kind of art are you making? And so that may be a personal thing you would have to contend with. I did buy into that idea for a while, the idea that self-destruction would make me a better artist. I think in our society, particularly with our generation, it's easier these days to fall into cynicism and the idea that it's cool to be unhappy. You know, off the top of my head, a prime example is people flexing their sleep deprivation at school. It's cool to feel like you're being drowned, you know, in all of this work and all of this, just the overwhelming condition of human life right now. But as hard as it is, I think we have to be wary of elevating suffering on a pedestal in a way that makes us seek it out, because then that begs the question, is it worth sacrificing that much of yourself for your art, especially when it isn't really necessary? That in itself is another loaded question and probably varies from person to person. I would like to draw attention to this quote by Picasso that's interesting in regards to this idea. He says that every act of creation is an act of destruction. And I think this is true, but I think there's a distinction to be made with what he is saying and kind of the other idea of the tortured artist trope. So in Picasso's eyes, whenever you're making something, you are destroying something to create it. So to make something is to annihilate the lack of that idea, right? So when you're putting paint on a canvas, you lose the opportunity of the blank canvas. You lose the purity and the untaintedness of the blank canvas. Making something causes you to lose what could have been, right? So there's this idea of this economic opportunity cost. And then in that same vein, he could also be referring to if what you are creating has a message or a theme that threatens to challenge other ideas. You have creation and spreading of a message at expense of another message. So those are two possible interpretations. But I do think that this is different from the idea of the tortured artist, which maintains that to destroy the self will breed better art. For me personally, I've made art out of pain, I've made art out of happiness, I've made art out of apathy, and it's not necessarily the feeling that entirely dictates how the art turns out. So I think it's possible to make art out of any of these emotions. Maybe the last argument for destruction here is that destruction and the recuperation from it teaches you unique things about life which you can incorporate into your art. And I think this is true, but there are equally informative experiences to be had in any emotion on the spectrum, as long as one is willing to seek them out. So I think in conclusion, this is a really complicated question, but I mainly believe that no, destruction and mainly self-destruction of the artist themselves is not necessary to create good art. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.